Let's take a look at what's included in your Goldwing HID's headlight system. You should have 2 HID headlight replacement bulbs, 2 ballast systems, 2 H4 connector wires, and a small packet of adhesive pads and alcohol wipes, and an owner's manual. This photo shows an overview of how the Goldwing HID system all hooks together. You'll notice the H4 male connector. Now this is going to plug into your female H4 connector on your Honda Goldwing. The ballast system takes power from the H4 connector and converts it to power the HID bulbs. And finally, there's the HID bulbs. These are going to replace the low beam bulbs on your Honda Goldwing. There's a few things I recommend that you have for this installation. A bottle of isopropyl alcohol and a couple of cloths, a small Phillips head screwdriver. You can use double-sided tape for the mounting. I prefer the Scotch all-weather fasteners. And then you're going to need some cable ties and some way to attach those cable ties to your fairing. They do include cable ties in the system. Now, I was able to find some of these little cable tie blocks at Lowe's. They have adhesive on the back, and you simply slip the cable tie in through the openings, and this way you can attach this little block to the inside of your fairing or to a piece of plastic and tie your cables and keep them up and out of the way of your front forks or any other mechanical parts. Removing the low beam bulbs on your Goldwing takes a little patience. You just reach up underneath the handlebars up toward the front of the fairing. Now, if you look up in there, this is what you're going to see. You see basically the H4 connector on the back of the headlight bulb, and there's also a rubber boot that surrounds that connector. Now here's what it looks like with the plug unplugged, and there's a couple of little tabs on that rubber boot. You simply pull on those and that boot comes right off. With the rubber boot removed, you can now see the metal retaining spring. This actually holds the bulb in place, and if you mash on that little part where the arrow is, you push it toward the front of the bike and then down toward the floor, it kind of will swing out of the way and release that bulb. Now you have to do this by feel because you can't really look up in there and do it at the same time, but you will get it done. And then the bulb will come out with the H4 to H7 adapter attached to it. Remove your HID bulbs from their protective plastic case and hold them like I'm holding them here. Be very careful never to touch the bulb itself. Now you'll notice a little notch on the mounting base. That needs to go in the up position when you insert this into the fairing. And here's a little tip. Go ahead and slip the rubber boot over the wires coming out of the back of the bulb. It will make it much easier to get that rubber boot back on later. Now, here's what the bulb looks like when it's installed. Notice the spring is back in place and the notch is in the up position. Okay, so we're out here in the garage. We're trying to get our Goldwing HIDs installed. And you know, the system is basically plug and play. It's really a pretty easy install as far as the wiring goes. You know, the headlights are a simple swap out with your standard H7 headlight. The challenge is, where do you mount the ballasts? You know, on like a 2001, 2010 Goldwing, you probably would be inclined to just stick these things inside the glove boxes and be done with it. The challenge here is on a 2012, there's not that much room in a glove box. Also, if you have an earlier ABS model, you may not have that much space underneath your glove boxes to put these 2 ballasts. You've got like a little thin square ballast, and then you got this what they call a ballast block. And you know, what I'm going to do is there's a little piece of trim, plastic trim, kind of the inner fairing right up underneath these headlights. If you put your hand up underneath there and you'll feel what almost like a little shelf, just a little bit thicker than this dude right here. And this thing's gonna slip right up in there. We're gonna use some double-sided tape or Velcro or something to hold it in place. And then I've put my Scotch dual lock, my 3M dual lock fastener on here, and we're going to attach this to another part of the inside of this fairing. And we've got a little clever way we're going to strap this, cable tie this all up so that the wires are all out of the way, and it should be a pretty cool install. And the best part of it is if you ever want to go back to your standard headlights, it's just a matter of unplugging some wires, putting your old bulbs back in, you're back in business. Hopefully you won't want to do that. To make mounting the ballast easier, I recommend that you remove the 2 screws that hold the lower front part of the cowl on. You don't have to do this, but I think it makes it a little easier. But when you do, you have to be very, very careful. You want to pull this little front piece down just barely. You don't want to pull it too far because there's another screw that holds this in place above, and if you pull too hard you could break it. So if you'll notice how far I'm pulling it out, that's all you want to do right there. You don't want to pull it any harder or you could break the tab on top, so be careful. But now you have a little better access to that little black shelf. You see that little piece of plastic right there? That's the piece of plastic that the ballast is going to attach to or slip up into. There's just enough room between there and the headlight for that ballast to fit. Now you can attach the ballast and the ballast block using double-sided tape, or you could use the Scotch dual lock fasteners. Just make sure you clean both surfaces good with isopropyl alcohol before you attempt to do that. You're also going to need to clean the inside of the fairing with alcohol before you attach anything to it as well. And using the pad that came with the system, as I am here, you just attach it to the back of the ballast. Now this graphic should give you some perspective on how I installed my ballast block and ran the wires. Now it's time to connect the wires to your HID plug-and-play system. Connect the 2 wires coming from the ballast block to the 2 wires that come out of the back of the HID bulb. Next, plug the H4 connector into the H4 connector that you originally removed from your stock Goldwing headlight bulb, and use a cable tie to secure these 2 together. Now use the cable ties to hide the wires and keep them up and out of the way. As you can see, I've attached one underneath the fairing here, and I attached another one to the inside wall of the fairing. You're kind of looking down through the tunnel here. Make sure you turn the handlebars side to side, looking down through the tunnel to make sure those front forks aren't hitting any of the wires. And if they are, use some more cable ties and tie everything up. This video gives you a hint at how much brighter and cleaner the light is coming out of these HIDs, but I gotta tell you, it does not do it justice. You can't imagine how much brighter and cleaner this light is and how much farther you can see with these HIDs.